I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein and give an update as to what's going on. The story has died down quite a bit, but it doesn't mean that there aren't things that are going on, especially in the courts. And let me take you to Bloomberg. According to Bloomberg, it says that an attorney for Jeffrey Epstein is confident that Ghislaine Maxwell told a judge that there are hundreds of people named in what is expected to be approximately, get this, Alexander, 2,000 pages of documents ordered unsealed by federal appeals court in New York. These documents are related to the Virginia Roberts Guthrie case that was filed against Maxwell, that was settled but was reopened by Mike Cernovich, the Miami Herald, and Epstein's former friend and associate, Alan Dershowitz, of all people. So, Alexander, take us into what's going on. These are a lot of names. 2,000 pages of documents.
This is a huge amount of names. Now, we don't quite know yet what sort of names these are going to be. I mean, these could be victims, and they could be accessories and perpetrators, people who were working together with Epstein. And it could be other people who are in between those two categories. In other words, people who were carrying out all sorts of other activities, maybe on behalf of Epstein, but were involved with him in some way and maybe potential witnesses. Now, these documents, as I understand it, they all originate from a defamation case that was brought in connection with allegations that this Virginia Guthrie was making about Ghislaine Maxwell's involvement with Epstein. Now, what's important to understand is that though that defamation case was settled, and now that there are criminal proceedings underway, you can't rely on confidentiality provisions to close down, to prevent a criminal court or criminal investigators looking at those sort of civil documents. Anything that is agreed in a civil claim cannot affect a criminal investigation. That is a fundamental principle. You can't contract out of the criminal law. I'll give you a very famous example of this from the early 1930s, when Al Capone's lawyers thought that they'd agreed with the then ancestor of the IRS a tax agreement. And what happened was that the criminal investigators took that agreement that Al Capone's lawyers had made and the evidence that was contained in that agreement to prove a criminal case of tax evasion. So this is exactly the same thing that's happening here. You see a defamation case, which is a civil case. There was an agreement apparently to end it. There were thousands of documents involved, which would have been sealed as part of that agreement. But now that agreement doesn't have any validity in a criminal investigation. And for that reason, it's likely that these documents will be unsealed. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to know all the names of all of these people. There is a privacy law, as there is in Europe, and certainly is in the United States, and it may be that some of the people involved or named in these documents will be able to ask the court to keep their names and identities secret on the grounds that this affects their privacy rights. And in some cases, possibly, that disclosure of their names might prejudice their position in any future legal proceedings. But the starting point is that we're going to get publication, and we will see what that involves, and thousands of people could be named, and that gives us some impression of the sheer scale of Epstein's activities.
Do you think an action like this should worry Ghislaine Maxwell, number one? And number two, another question I have, which is always kind of sad in my mind, is what do you think Alan Dershowitz who's asked to unseal these documents may know about them. I mean, would he know something about what's in the contents of these documents, given that there was a court case related to this? Because he's one of the people that is asking to open this up, but it has been rumored that he's been very deeply involved with Epstein. Once again, that's what's been rumored. We don't.
Yes.
I mean, he claims otherwise, but what would he gain out of this? What would someone like that gain out of having these documents unsealed?
Right. Let me first of all talk about Maxwell. To my mind, what this shows, thousands upon thousands of documents, 2,000 documents, scores of hundreds of names of people, is the extent of Maxwell's involvement with Epstein. I mean, that's what it points to. Now, it may be that, Virginia Giuffre has made lots of allegations and that these allegations don't really amount to very much. And I should say that 2,000 pages of documents may sound like a lot of documents, but in civil proceedings, that not necessarily a lot of documents. But it does nonetheless feel as if we're looking at a big document dump with lots and lots of names, and that does point to Maxwell's very intimate involvement and knowledge of Epstein and of some of his activities. But we'll have to wait and see. As to what Dershowitz is up to, well, of course, it's not always easy to say, but a plausible guess is that Dershowitz wants these documents unsealed because he thinks he will be able to find in those documents material that exculpates him, that shows that he is innocent. I mean, that's the obvious explanation. Right. Whether he's right is an entirely different thing again. I mean, Dershowitz was Epstein's lawyer. I mean, he did work for for Epstein on legal matters, and that would in itself possibly explain some of these contacts between Epstein and Dershowitz that some people find suspicious. It might not explain all of them, but that may be what Dershowitz is hoping for or looking for in these documents. Of course, he may not know fully what's there, but we shall see.
All right, let me read you a final excerpt from Bloomberg, Alexander. You can comment on it. It says, the lawyer, Jeffrey Paglucha, told U.S. District Judge Loretta Preska Wednesday that the materials also include an address book with about 1,000 names. Preska is considering how to carry out a ruling by the Federal Appeals Court in New York that she must consider unsealing some of the documents. There was no detail at the hearing as to the identity of the people are named in the documents, and they may include women who say they are victims of Epstein, his friends, and others. So, Alexander, this excerpt from Bloomberg to me says that the judge, Loretta Preska, may unseal some of the documents, and as you said, a lot of these names may not necessarily be people who, Epstein was handing over, children to. I don't know another way to put it.
Co-conspirators.
Let's call it co-conspiracy. Yeah.
Accomplices.
Right. These may be victims.
These may be victims, indeed. And if they are victims, and if when they were victims, they were underage victims, then I strongly suspect that the court in that kind of situation will want to conceal their identities.
Would they say that the names conceal? Would a court say, I have 1,000 names, 300 of them I'm not going to release because these are victims? Is that how they would phrase it?
Yes.
Or would they just leave it, these are the names I'm releasing, these are not? Because if they don't say who it is, then you have all kinds of, people thinking, well, who are the names and, what's going on here?
They will do whatever they can to conceal the identities of the people who they feel it's in the public interest and in their interests and inconsistent with their privacy rights not to disclose who they are. And that may very well restrict information about how these people are involved in the case. Now, it could be that they're victims, in which case they would be excluded from publication. It could be that there are people who are so deeply implicated at the moment, but who have not yet been formally charged or formally investigated, that the court may feel that it's better to keep their names back for the moment until the authorities have made clear whether there is going to be an investigation or not. Given that we're talking about different categories of people, I strongly suspect that the court will not want to say that we're keeping back the names of these people because they are victims, and of those people because they are potential suspects. I think that they will try to just say that we are concealing the names of these people or holding back these names for legal reasons,
Would some of these names,
exactly.
Would some of these names be powerful people?
Well,
that they would hold back
an address book.
I've seen his address book. I mean, it's on the internet. Yeah. It's public.
Yes,
it's in the public domain. I mean, you have some heavy hitters.
Well, indeed so. But you see, I mean, did Epstein keep only one address book? And given that we're talking about a man of multiple personalities, I mean, he was a financier, he was a wealthy philanthropist, he was a supporter of scientists, and he was an utterly ruthless and cynical and deeply corrupt predator. So he was a man of many identities with many secrets. So maybe he's got one address book, which we all know about, and maybe there are many others, several others, with different names and different information contained in them. We don't yet know. So I would have thought that an address book of any kind points to people that Epstein or whoever was working with Epstein wanted to be in contact with. And that suggests the sort of people that Epstein would want to associate with on a socially equal level. Given what a powerful man Epstein was, that suggests powerful people.
Are you happy with the way this is proceeding, Alexander? Is this normal? Do you think the pace at which we're learning more and more about Epstein is normal? Does this satisfy you as far as the transparency that we're getting? I mean, how do you... taking a step back, we're a couple of weeks removed from when this story hit. Things have calmed down some, and we're getting trickles of news coming out from the courts as to what's going on, especially since his, quote unquote suicide. Are you satisfied with how you're seeing things unfold, or do you have you don't have to, say what those doubts are. Do you have some doubts or some trepidations as to what's happening?
Right. I have seen nothing about the investigation into Epstein's activities that so far would cause me to be worried. I mean, the time scale is not so far concerning. And the fact that we are getting all this information, that these documents are going to be released, is consistent with an investigation taking place and that investigation proceeding seriously. The question of Epstein's death is an entirely different matter. There, I will admit, I am concerned. I'm very concerned because there ought to be a proper investigation going on into the circumstances of his death. I would have thought that by now we would be getting some answers, at least some apparent answers. And as you rightly say, everything's gone very quiet. So I am concerned. I'm concerned more than alarmed. But if this goes on for much longer, I will become alarmed. With the that's the death.
Makes sense.
With the investigation itself into his activities, so far I've not seen anything that would make me concerned.
Okay, that makes sense. You're seeing things on two tracks. One is the activities as to what was going on, and the people around him who are now. We're starting to get a little bit of a better understanding as to who was around him and what was going on, and then you have his death, which I think everyone who's watching this video agrees that. The whole thing is suspicious. Yeah.
I mean, beyond. I mean, host of unanswered questions, and that puts it mildly, and not much sign, by the way, that anybody is pursuing those answers. At least not publicly. So as I said, I mean that's the concern. As I said, if we are back in this situation in a month's time, then maybe that'll be the point to become alarmed.
Yeah. All right. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Thank you very much, guys. If you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on the notifications bell to make sure you get notifications every time we push out a new video. And get an audio copy of this video. Follow us on iTunes and Soundcloud. The links are in the description box down below. And please donate to us on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar. Your donation really helps keep this channel up and running, and we appreciate all the donations that you send us. And you can also help out the Duran and this channel by going to the Duran shop and picking up some awesome merchandise. Mugs.
Oh, it's awesome. These are my 2 original mugs, which I mean, in some ways, because they're my original mugs, they're still my favorites, I think, in the end. They're the ones I always come back to. So this is my own mug with our own beautiful Duran eagle there, double-headed eagle, pointing to the east and west. As I said many times, 15 ounces, beautiful porcelain. I drink tea from it. It's got quite cool in England now, so I'm tending to drink a sort of Queen Anne tea, for those who are interested, which is a fairly rich tea, but not too rich. You drink it with milk, and it's perfect. This mug is perfect for drinking that kind of tea from it. Queen Anne, it dates actually this tea from 1907. It was created by Fortnum and Masons to commemorate the founding of their firm in 1707. It's known to be appreciated by the royal family, but I'm sure that they don't drink it from cups anywhere nice as this one. And this is my wife's mug, favorite mug, with the double-headed eagle of Moscow, with St. George on his horse, slaying the dragon of fake news and untruth. And what a marvelous mug, and what a marvelous coat of arms that is. So you can have this wonderful coat of arms, wonderful mug with this coat of arms, and you can have shirts like this beautiful shirt that I'm wearing now, long sleeve t-shirt, 100% cotton, beautifully dyed, with our own Duran eagle there. Lots of other shirts too. Shirts like the one Alex is wearing, but also, polo shirts, stickers, hats, hoodies, marvelous things, all of the highest quality. I mean, at the Duran, unlike some of our imitators, we really aim to provide top quality merchandise, and the feedback we're getting is phenomenal. I mean, I say that I'm seeing this feedback, Alex is seeing this feedback, so help yourself, help the Duran, go to our shop, buy these great items, and support us and yourself in this way and in any other way you can.
Absolutely. You can get a link to the Duran shop in the description box down below. I'm laughing a little bit, Alexander, because you mentioned the Queen Anne tea, and it's appreciated by the royal family. And my mind just went to Andrew.
Well, there we go. Well, that
not that I'm saying anything.
Well, for all
don't demonetize us, YouTube.
for all I know, that the Queen, reading all these awful headlines, has to reassure herself by drinking Duran tea, rather Queen Anne tea, because for all I know, also she's drinking it from a Duran mug. Because let's be frank about it. I mean, these are absolutely top quality. I mean, Windsor Castle and Balmoral and Buckingham Palace would be very, very well fitted out with mugs like this.
All right, Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.